Okay, welcome to Massive Source and the Work Podcast and Interview. So today I have Adelaide with me, and I feel very fortunate to have been to her performance yesterday, which was extremely powerful. So Adelaide, you're an artist and a performance artist. Can you please tell the audience what type of work that you do and where a little bit about your past as an artist, how you came in to be an artist, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into why, maybe.
Okay.
A bit. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a painter and performance artist. I use my body basically as the tool to express the subject or the issue it is that I want to talk about at that particular moment in time. And I've been working in this way, I want to say, since around 2015-16. And but I've been a practicing artist for the past 15 years, since 2005. Before pre-2016, I was more of a figurative painter. So I was working, I suppose, more traditionally, I want to say, even though it wasn't really traditional, because I haven't had classical training. I'm more self-taught. So I was, I guess, sharpening my teeth and trying to find my voice in that way of working. And I was trying to tell different stories about various social issues that were of importance to me, but didn't necessarily have to do directly with me.
Right. Okay.
And I had a mentor who told me to put myself at the centre of the work. And I kind of grew from that to this, which is really me using my authentic voice to talk about things that are of importance to me, with myself as the centre.
Could you tell us a little bit about the performance you were doing yesterday? For the people who weren't there, obviously I'll put links in so you might see. I don't know if you have some live performances on YouTube and such, but why you really chose to put, because I know that, a mentor can awaken you, but you are really the one to understand why it is important for you to be the center of your work, and how that journey has been for you, and what that's, because the name of your piece yesterday was Healing Through Art. And so I wonder, how has that personal journey been from you, from going to maybe being the person who represents others through your paintings, and now all of a sudden you've switched the dynamic, and now you're, I would also say, in a very vulnerable state as you're in the center of your work. So how has the journey been to that, and can you speak a little bit more about the actual performance, what you want to convey through it?
Okay. So starting with the journey, I mentioned before that it was a mentor who told me to put myself at the centre of the work. But then after him, there was another artist friend of mine, someone who I respect and admire very much, whose name is Rachel Ara, who gave me a critique. And she said of my previous work, which was a show I did in 2015 called This Is Us, which is very much figurative painting, focused on the female form, and it was telling the story of a non-binary throuple.
What is that?
So it was a lesbian couple who were in a relationship with another female, but no, it wasn't a lesbian couple, because the woman was she was engaged to be married to a female to male trans person.
Right.
And they were in a poly relationship with another female. So it was telling that story through the medium of dance and painting. It's a whole nother story. But this lady who gave me a critique said that she didn't feel that work was successful, in that she didn't feel like she fully got what I was trying to say with that work just from the painting. Right. And so she said that she felt like I was more of an artist than how I was presenting myself with that work. And she asked me to think outside of the box. She said, stop trying to think like a figurative painter, because that's not who you are. You're more than that. I didn't know that I was more than that at that time. I didn't know that I was... That's a
beautiful critique to get, honestly.
I didn't know that I was anything else but that. But she saw that in me. And so that, at first it felt like a kick in the guts, to be honest. And then I went into the studio and I just had to be really honest with myself and strip myself back and really do some proper research, some deep emotional digging, and some playing around as well in the studio. So till I got to the point where it just clicked that I need to, this is what Simon meant when he said put yourself at the center of the work. And so I started making work in the studio using my body like that. And then because I was recording myself in that process, it felt like a performative act. So then the performance kind of developed naturally from that. I had done painting performances previously, but not in this way. So that was how it developed like that. And then my first performance where I was using my body was in 2017. And that was the one that I was referring to, which was around Eve Klein, but I can get back to that. But then bringing it up to date and the performance I did yesterday, I mean, in the context of the space that we were in yesterday, because the talk was healing through art, but the performance itself was entitled Into the Mind of the Colonizer.
Yes.
And that performance, basically, I had found, I mean, I've been obsessed with the history of colonization, specifically the British Empire, for some time. And so I've been collecting bits and pieces, whether they be stamps and books and things relating to the British Empire for a while. And I came across a CD-ROM on eBay, which contained more than 200 out-of-print books, which talked specifically about colonization from the perspective of the colonizer. So a lot of these books are written by actual people who were involved in the process of colonization, whether that was them documenting what they were doing, whether that was them providing instruction in how to colonize another nation, but all of them had inserted their opinion of the natives. Wow. So all the things that you heard me saying yesterday.
Yeah, that was very,
and so the idea of the performance was for, in the first place, I was dressed in Ghanaian funeral attire. Both of my parents are Ghanaian. Ghana was previously colonized by the British. It used to be British Gold Coast up until independence in 1957. So me wearing Ghanaian funeral attire was about me putting that past to rest. And in the performance, I was speaking the words of the colonizer through those texts, so reading some of those texts. And then I invited the audience to come and cut my clothes off. And the cutting of the clothes, you know about art history, was a nod to Yoko Ono's 1965 cut piece. So
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so that piece, she did this piece in 1965 where she presented herself in front of the audience. She didn't tell them what to do. She just had scissors and some instruments there, and just let the audience do what they were going to do. And they came and they started cutting her clothes off. And her piece was talking about violence against the female body.
Well, I was actually, I actually thought about Abramovich because she did something similar. And honestly, I have to say, I was almost tearing up when somebody gave me the scissors, because I felt now I'm an accomplice. And that's how powerful your work was, because I remember that piece of her where people, for those of you who don't know, I think they're actually much more violent. They actually use, tools. I can't remember. I think maybe I even think I blocked it a little bit, because there was it was so strong, because they're allowing anyone to do whatever they want to her body. And this is what I also, I want you to continue, obviously, but it's so powerful because it really touches upon what you also said, how we are coming back and taking back a story, because your story obviously is very different from mine. And there's so much richness to you doing these simple actions and engaging the public, because we're becoming a part of your story, of your empowerment, actually. And you're doing it very authentically and very openly and vulnerably. And I think that's what touched me so much, that also as a woman, no matter your story, because everybody knows that this story about colonialism has so much blood on their hands. And still it's very much alive, and that's also why it's so beautiful that you're doing it. But I also feel like you're doing it what I would say, I had a podcast this week with another woman coming from Syria, from the Arab culture. And what I was saying is that I feel like why we're also sometimes fumbling in the dark is because we are redefining.
Yeah.
We're actually not defining, we're redefining and breaking down the barriers.
Yeah.
We don't need to be referred to as the, yes, it's a part of our history, our ancestry, and we honor it. And it's beautiful to do that. And I think that has been done. And also, like, it's absolutely a huge part of the platform that we're standing on, or but there's something more that is emerging, from women. And I think globally that there is a new way for us.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit through, just as a woman, or your story, or, whatever comes to you, how you are maybe breaking down what has been through your art, or who you are now redefining yourself as a woman or an artist, or
I think that's I'm doing that a lot through my performances, and I've got several different performances which speak to different things.
Yes.
And I suppose in terms of what you're talking about, probably there are two that speak to that directly. The first of which is the one that I referred to earlier, which was my very first performance where I was using my body, which is called "This Is Me: The Inconsistency of the Self." And with that one, I refer to I'm referencing a performance by Yves Klein. Yves Klein's 1960 Anthropometry's performance. You know about that one?
Yeah, you told me about it.
Yeah. So in his original performance, he has selected intentionally several very good-looking, very young white women. I mean, this is 1960 Paris, right? Very thin women, very particular aesthetic, right? And got them to cover their bodies in his signature blue paint. He patented this blue paint because he was obsessed with this ultramarine blue. Yeah, he was completely obsessed with it. And so they covered their bodies in this paint in front of an audience. He's fully dressed. Then they're all naked. He's fully dressed in a dinner suit, and he has an audience. They're all dressed in black tie, and then there's an orchestra playing one note for 20 minutes as well.
Oh my God, that's intense.
It's intense.
Yeah.
And then he directs them to print their bodies onto this white, I think it was canvas, and he creates the art pieces that came out of that performance. And he didn't just create those art pieces in performance, he created them in the studio as well. But the art pieces that came out of that were beautiful, undeniably stunning works. And that particular colour of blue is also very, very beautiful, right? And arresting. But the critique that came out of that performance, feminist critique specifically, was that what he was actually doing, whether he was aware of it or not, was creating a passive female body which was ripe for objectification by the male gaze, right? And I when I read that, I was like, oh,
yeah, okay. No, I can feel that.
Yeah. So that my performance was a black feminist response to that work, right? Because as a black female, being born and raised in the UK, there is I'm so aware of the weight of history surrounding the way the black female body has been presented and portrayed and objectified, and all sorts of different things. And so for me, reenacting that performance without any male interference, with it being just myself and directing myself, not doing the whole rubbing the body in front of an audience thing, but doing that bit in private, coming out completely covered, and then doing the body printing, and also recording the reactions of the audience in writing on the paper as part of the performance as well. So all of that is kind of like a like what you were saying, it's like a reclamation of my womanhood and a presentation of myself in the way that I want to present myself. So this is me, the inconsistency of the self.
Though?
power.
The level of vulnerability, I believe, power is vulnerability as well.
Yes.
But I would love to just kind of, how does that feel like?
Like, it's an indescribable feeling of power and control. Because the thing about it is that, I mean, you saw yesterday that as soon as I present myself and in front of the audience, everyone just went silent.
Yeah.
It was complete silence.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with that performance. I've got the audience under my spell.
Yeah.
So when you are nude like that, and but I was covered up, but you're doing a specific action to create something, and the audience is completely under your spell. It's indescribable. When it's quite a large audience as well, the more people there are,
yeah, because it's energy that's just
exactly
going into the work.
It's just that you're absorbing all of that energy. So then by the time I finish the performance, then I get this performance high and I start spinning. Like, it's intense.
Yeah, but I can also, what I feel from what you're talking about, and I also saw one of your performances on one of your interviews, and what I feel is also, it's the power in the unspoken. I feel that there's so much power in what you're doing as well, because we all know, what can I say? It's like, there's so many roles that we are as females or black or, daughter of, your ancestry, and me, myself, with my own history. And there's so many labels, for us women as well, and with our bodies, that are constantly put in our heads.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's beautiful. You said it in the talk yesterday, because we were talking about the female gaze and how you gaze upon yourself. And you talked about several things, but I think it's in the authenticity of your own voice that really, it has nothing to do with, then it kind of erases all of these what can I say, all of these labels that are put on us. And that is literally why I'm doing this work as well, because I believe that as we raise our voices and as we are in our most pure authentic self, the haters, the critics, everything, it doesn't really matter, because that's the redefinition. This is who I am. So that in itself is empowering for yourself, and it can also help others to really do that. Because I think, as a woman, it's so powerful to live in this time, but it's also quite, what can I say? We're very exposed. We're both exposing ourselves, and we're getting exposed to a lot of things. And I think I'm raising a young daughter as well, and I'm just also, what kind of role model am I? And she also she's half Cuban, so she also has ancestry, with slaves, etc., going through her veins. And I'm very aware of that, although that's not my my story. Which story am I telling to her? And that's why I particularly really connected to your story, because I would want her to see herself as a lineage of your story, but not necessarily all of the books and the very, what can I say, sometimes it lacks a varied, I don't know, it lacks representation. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the stories are there's so much pain, that who can you rise from this? And what I think is so beautiful, because we have to acknowledge what's happened. We have to look it into the eyes. There has to be acknowledgement, and also, of the white privilege. I know very well, even just being born in this country, how easy it is for me to have a voice and to be heard. So therefore I'm using it, but I'm also using it as a platform, again, so that there can be representation, and diversity. But enough about that. I get super engaged. I think it's just beautiful what you do. But I would love for you to talk a little bit more about where, not necessarily the future, where are you going, but what is your vision for not just yourself, but for, where are we going? Where do you want to go? Like, where you know, where do you see us, or where do you see yourself as a group you represent, or just yourself as a woman?
So many layers to that.
Many.
So, I mean, I want to start by saying that I'm a member of a collective called the Black British Female Artists Collective. We were established in 2015. The BBFA Collective is the brainchild of my very good friend and sister friend, I like to call her, Adelaide Damoah. And the whole idea was because as a group of women, we were sick to the back teeth of not being represented. I mean, anybody who knows anything about the art world knows about the lack of representation in the art world, and knows about, specifically when it comes to women, the statistics of women represented in museum are so ridiculous. Like, I'm talking less than 4% representation in museums, and Black women, forget it. You're not even in the count. Right. So, but I feel like we're living in exciting times. I feel like things are changing, and I feel like things are changing quite rapidly. And I also feel like in terms of where I feel like we're going, as a collective, we have a dream to be able to be in a position where, as a collective, that we are self-sustaining, right? So in that we are able to fund ourselves to do various projects and things. So far, we've done lots of international projects, quite a few international projects where we've worked with women in one in Ghana. We just did Artex Lagos in Nigeria. We've done a project in Portland, Oregon, and one in Germany. So we want to get into a position where the collective is able to fund itself and be able to pay for us to do more of these kinds of projects, so that we're not relying on funding. So that once we get to the point where we want to get to, where we're self-sustaining, we can replicate the model and be able to pass the ladder down and do incubator programs where we're bringing in other young women behind us. And that young doesn't necessarily mean young in age. Could be somebody who's just entering the industry who is older, right? So, and that's where I feel like we're going as a collective. There are 4 of us in the collective currently. And we're hoping to grow that over time. And the 4 of us are Colleen De Souza, Aisha Faisal, myself, and Adelaide Damoah. And we, from a range of artistic disciplines. But in terms of female artists, just generally, again, I do feel like things are changing for the better rapidly. I feel like there are more women in powerful positions in institutions, which is kind of helping that change. I also feel like several museums are and galleries are taking intentional steps towards redressing the balance. Right. And I literally did a talk a few weeks ago which talked about the how that it was smart actually to invest in Black women artists now. And the reason for that is, like I say, I feel like, not even I feel like, this is actually what's happening right now. There is a correction that's taking place in that curators, directors, investors are going through the history books, going through the artists who exist now, and saying who has been overlooked on the grounds of their race and their gender, right? And making these corrections. So, and this is part of the reason why there are a few Black female artists whose careers are rising like this, because that gap between us and the rest is so big. So if you look at someone like Julie Moretu, who is a very successful Black artist in the States, I think her top auction price was something like $6 million, whereas at the other extreme you've got Jeff Koons, $91 million. So I mean, and this is at the higher end of the market, right? So if you want to, if this correction is applied across the board on the market, and I feel like this is happening because the market is getting so excited about diversity right now and about redressing that balance. So I feel like it's happening, and that more and more space is being created. And because all of this is happening, it's meaning that investors and collectors are being attracted from outside of the usual marketplace, who wouldn't otherwise have been attracted because they see themselves represented, right? So you're getting African collectors, you're getting collectors from all over the world. So the whole international art market is getting really excited. So it's meaning that I feel like, I may be wrong because I'm not a market analyst, but I sometimes look at the market reports, and I feel like the market is expanding, which means that there's going to be more space for everybody. And I'm somebody who believes in coming from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Abundance mentality, not scarcity mentality. So I feel like, there is going to be there's increasing space for everybody to have sustainable careers, for those who want to put in the work and be consistent and passionate and come from a place of authenticity. There's space.
No, but I couldn't agree more. And I think actually what's happening in, the arts sphere is also actually a product of, it's happening everywhere. But I think if you want to retrace it, maybe this is a simplification, but I believe living in abundance is also acknowledging your worthiness. And I believe as you acknowledge your worthiness, you're also again raising your voice. And also because there are platforms now where instead of before we had to go through different, whether it's agents or representation or a certain system, it's being broken open. And I think that is the huge revolution which we also have to benefit from, because literally, and that's why, as I told you, I started my own production company, because I don't want to follow the rules. I want the people who have the voices and who have the needs and who have something that comes from a place of the heart, of authenticity, from a pure place. They need to be in the forefront. And and I see us gathering. There are more and more of us, and we want that for our world, because we're just sick of people destroying it. And it's becoming it's becoming ridiculous. But at the same time, this theatre is also quite interesting to look at, because it's just, we've been shown what they've been doing all along, and therefore, that also raises people's motivation to just go it's time. Let's get together.
And there's a democratization that's happening as well because of the internet. Because of social media. People are connecting who would never have connected from across the world. Like what's happening right here with this thing is mainly because of Instagram, actually. Nicole messaged me through Instagram. We met in person. Really? We met in person, but it was through Instagram that she messaged me. And it's through Instagram that she messaged a lot of the other artists, actually, to get them here.
Wow. So, and we don't know where this podcast is going to go.
Exactly.
That's why I'm saying, if there's something that you really have, in terms of, in terms of your heart and your vision, that you also want other people to be aware of. But I really, just as we end this, we're reaching the end of it. I would actually love for you, before you can kind of speak directly, I want you to speak directly to afterwards you can speak directly to people, because I also think, this is why we're doing this. This is not just us sitting having a cup of tea, although I love that idea. But I just wanted to just jump back, because this is really where my heart lies, about, the process, because I always say to the people I interview, could you break it down, for people who feel like they might be, trapped in a void where they might be struggling with their story, actually. They might not have found the way, to break out of it and to, rise from it, to transform as you do through your art. And I think I listened to an interview that you did. I just looked at your Instagram briefly because we literally just met. And you were saying something about, if you feel comfortable, obviously, sharing about it, having gotten ill from endometriosis. Sorry. And could you talk about how that, because I know a lot of people are listening, and it's very easy to look at powerful people and go like, that's beautiful, but that's not me.
Yeah.
So I feel like going through the, where the healing started can make it actually quite relatable.
Yeah.
So not everybody will have the same journey as you, but it's something about you being human, that we all can kind of be, on the floor crying at all times. But that's also when we can find and hear our calling.
Yeah.
And there can be a light switch because we go into it instead of just lying on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't mind sharing a little bit from that.
That's a long story.
That it's probably
I'll try I'll
no
condense
rush.
I'll condense it. I'll try and condense it. Would you want me to speak directly that way? Or
no, you can just speak whatever,
Okay, so I was diagnosed with endometriosis when I was 22 years old. And at that point, I'd been suffering. Okay, firstly, if you don't know what endometriosis is, I should probably start there, right?
Yeah,
so
ahead.
Endometriosis is a chronic, painful condition that affects 1 in 10 women globally. And they actually think it's a lot more than that.
Really?
Because more recently, the government, specifically in the UK, has started to put more money into investigating this, because so many women, I've come across so many women who have got the symptoms and they don't get diagnosed until on average 8 to 9 years later after first experiencing symptoms. Because you'll go to the doctors and you'll be like, this is abnormal, I'm in so much pain, I'm literally crippled when I have my period, this is not normal. And the doctor will just say, it's just period pain, just take tablets. But it's, when I say it's debilitating, I have that one plus adenomyosis plus fibroids. And when I say that mine was debilitating, it really was debilitating. There were times when I couldn't walk. There were times when I was staying with my parents and they literally every week were having to call an ambulance to take me to the hospital.
Really?
The only thing that was getting rid of the pain was morphine.
Oh my God, wow.
Morphine. And there were the times when it was at its worst. I literally had to be put in a wheelchair to be taken to the bathroom, had to be catheterized. At its worst, I was contemplating suicide. So I've been there.
No, I think it's really powerful you telling this story. Thank you for that. Yeah.
But it was in being like literally on my stomach, sometimes crawling, sometimes lying on my dad's chest as a grown woman, sobbing my heart out, because I was like, why is this happening to me? But it was being in those moments that I was able to find my true self, I suppose, because I didn't study art. I studied applied biology at university. After graduation, I went to work in the pharmaceutical industry. And it was during that time that I got my diagnosis. But it was in those moments of being sick, when I couldn't do anything else but paint, that I discovered, not that I discovered actually, because I've been painting since I was a child and it was always a source of comfort for me. But it wasn't something that I ever took seriously. I only started taking it seriously when people would come and see me when I was sick and say, what's that? Can I buy it?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how it started.
That's beautiful. Oh, I love that.
That's how it started.
Because it came from like really your pain, basically.
It did.
Is what I'm hearing.
And a lot of the work that I was doing at that time was about the pain. And so initially I was working with the Endometriosis Society and National Endometriosis Research Foundation. And I think they ended up appropriating one of my images for the cause. And I've done talks about it. I did a march on Parliament Square where we brought petitions to Parliament to encourage the government to invest more in research to find out what was the cause and to help women who are experiencing this, because 8 years on average to diagnosis is way too long.
No, and that's a lot of pain. And you know, some of them have children and our families, or no.
And it can make you infertile. In rare cases, it can kill you because some of the lesions can travel to the brain, can travel to the lungs, and cause serious issues. I know somebody who's ended up in a wheelchair as a consequence of endometriosis.
Yeah, I know so several actually.
It's quite serious. But for me, I would say that the art, in terms of what we were talking about yesterday with regards to healing, the art gave me the mental space to be able to find a way of living that helped me to heal. So now I do, I have a meditation practice, I have yoga practice, I'm mindful of what I eat, I'm mindful of when I eat. So I do intermittent fasting, and all of these things to try and keep my body as healthy as possible have really helped to minimize my pain levels. And this is, so I've gone from having multiple surgeries, having had to have my body at a young age forced into menopause multiple times through drugs. And now I've come to a point where I'm coasting. I've got pain most of the time, but it's manageable. It's not, I'm not in like dying pain, but it's just a low level of pain. Like I want to say a 1 or a 2 out of 10 all the time, but I can live with that. And I can just have a normal, healthy life now. But it's that pain that allows me to do what I did yesterday. Someone said to me yesterday, he felt like I embodied the pain of the story that I was telling in the performance. I'm only able to do that because I know pain. That's the only reason why I'm able to do that. So I can use it.
Thank you for doing that. That's very, it really touches me deeply. And I think, you know, you haven't listened to the other podcast that I'm doing, but I talk a lot about how grief and pain is how we can live very powerfully.
Exactly.
And we need both, and we need to live very close to it. And we live in a world where, you know, it's all about joy all of a sudden. It's all about changing out the latest. And because of, you know, the tools that we've been given. But I feel I'm so happy to have met you and to have this talk, because I feel like you're turning it around. You're turning around your story. You're taking back your power through that, and you're using all these means, as I would say, you know, in a very enlightened way, which is really, you know, a game changer for many, many young women who might be growing up not in necessarily the same circumstances as you do, but that might, you know, need guidance, because I think there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's easy as a woman to lose your way. You know, even here in Norway, you know, or anywhere actually, women are just, you know, undressing, you know, voluntarily on the internet. And I'm not saying, because I'm a part of the feminist movement, where we also have pride in our bodies, but it's on our own terms, and it's when we want, and it's how we want it, and you know, it's up to us to decide. So I'm just super grateful for this talk, really. And if you feel, I don't know why, but I always go with my gut on this. I just feel like, because I know there's a lot of people listening. And can you just say very briefly, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but like, what is it that you need to see in the world? I just believe in clear messages. What do you need as an artist right now, or what do you need to see in the world as an artist right now in order for your vision to come into form? Because that is going to stick with these people that are listening, and that will make them think and open up maybe the things they're doing as well. Do you see what I mean? What are we lacking if I turn it around? You know, what are we lacking in the world today? Or what do you want to put on the agenda? What is needed right now?
I think it's access and visibility.
Talk to sorry. Access and visibility.
Yeah. But I think it's happening.
Yeah.
Because I feel, when I say access and visibility, because until not like that long ago, I mean, it's taken me 15 years to have access and visibility, right? 15 years of slog and banging on doors.
Wow, yeah.
Right, and being ignored. And so some people might look at me and who didn't know me previously and think, oh, overnight success. Someone was saying that to me the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's nothing, there's
nothing more irritating like that. You don't know how old I am.
And
you
that
don't
doesn't
know
even
how...
exist.
There's no such thing.
No, exactly.
There's no such thing. Nobody is successful overnight. And I'm not saying that I'm remotely successful. I am right at the beginning of,
but you've come far.
of getting to that point of that I would consider success personally. But access and visibility for those who are talented and are authentically themselves, because the art world is specifically in the Western world, the art world is so elitist.
Yeah.
It's so elitist. Yes. And unless you know certain people, you can't get in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to be given the chance to be seen is important. But also, aside from that, I also feel like, I say access and visibility, but I also believe it's very important to do for self and for us to create our own platforms. Yeah. Which is the reason for the collective. Yeah. And which I have always done. One thing that I didn't say at the beginning is that when I started, nobody was giving me shows. I did my own shows. Yeah. I wasn't going to sit down and wait for somebody to come and give me a show. No, I get it. So I hired a space. I begged, stole and borrowed. The times when I couldn't afford the space, I got my friends and family to sponsor my canvases for me. How much can you give me for a canvas? Okay, I'll give you 50 quid, I'll give you 50 quid, I'll give you 50 quid. Before I knew it, I had all the canvases I needed to make the work, made the work. Yeah. And then... I'm a believer in that. Right? Yeah. And then hired the space, did the show, got a friend of mine who did PR to do the PR for me. Bob's your uncle, I've got a show. I didn't have to go to a gallery. I hired a gallery space, right? So it's like, if you have a dream and you want to make that dream come true, go out and get it. Don't sit and wait for someone to come and hand it to you, because they may never hand it to you. Then what are you going to do? And then cry? Also, to be honest, it won't be yours. Exactly. I've had jobs where literally, like, lots of stuff have been handed to me, but it was to nourish their baby. Exactly. It wasn't my baby. Exactly. And that, the feeling of ownership, not, of your own dreams and being the creator of them, that's super powerful. Yeah. That's it. So even though I said access and visibility, I think I think that is important. But I think what's more important is self-belief and doing for self. Yes. That's it. Yeah. Wow, that was a great ending. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Adelaide. You're welcome. Okay, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you really got so much from this that I did personally. So, keep yourself on Instagram, social media, and follow this lady. I'll put all the details because it's amazing the stuff that she does. And if you're in London, are you mostly showing your work in London? Not really. No. I mean, I'm based in London. You're based in London. Everything I've got coming up over the next year or so is not in London. Right. So, but they can probably check that out on your website. Right? So your details will be below. Yeah. Thank you so much, Adelaide. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.